Good morning, everyone. My name is Joban, and I'll be your stage host today for Stage 1. First, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, on whose land ICC Sydney stands on which we meet today, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Now for some housekeeping notes. Please ensure all your devices are on silent. All sessions today are being recorded and live streamed and will be available after the session. Please download the events app if you haven't already. You can use it to get access to all of the agenda and provide feedback after the session. For our first session today, I'd like to invite to the stage Jamie Simons, FSI Director at AWS.
Well, good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Jamie Simon. I'm the Director of Financial Services for AWS across Australia and New Zealand. It's my pleasure to welcome David Walker to the stage today, the Chief Technology Officer of Westpac. Westpac is an organisation that needs no real introduction. They're the oldest bank in Australia, in fact the oldest enterprise in Australia, and as you can imagine they've had to reinvent themselves many times over the years, and they're undergoing another one of those reinventions right now as they pursue their ambition to be the #1 bank for their customers through their lives. AWS is excited to have had a relationship with Westpac over the last 10 years and excited to play a really critical role in supporting them on that bold ambition. A big part of which is going to be enabled through AI and their AI labs, which is what David's going to be talking about today. So as I welcome David to the stage, just a very short bio on him. David Walker kicked off his tech journey as a software and data engineer and has helped shape technology across major organisations in the APAC region. He was part of the leadership team at Singaporean bank DBS and played a pivotal role in its transformation from a traditional bank into more of a tech company, globally recognised as best digital bank in the world. Today, as Westpac's Group Chief Technology Officer, David is leading Westpac through its technology transformation, simplifying and merging the bank, building 4th-gen cloud-native applications, establishing and operating evergreen platforms, leading Westpac's AI technology, and building a culture of passionate and forward-thinking tech and emerging talent, which I know David is very passionate about. Westpac's ambition, as I mentioned, is to be our customers' #1 bank and partner through life. This means that Westpac needs to adapt to the changing world, which is what David has been leading for the last 6 years and a big part of what he'll be covering today. So please join me in welcoming David to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be back at an Amazon stage. It's been a while, and it feels great to be here. It's great to see so many friendly faces and people I haven't seen for a little while, and people I've seen just early this morning. So good to see everyone. Australia needs to be winning at artificial intelligence. Not just organisations, but the whole of the country needs to get there. And so it's upon all of us, including companies like mine, to make sure that we're at the forefront of technology. Productivity is going to be the thing that changes countries, and so we need to harness the artificial intelligence that's available to us to make that true. And so with that, we need to think about how does every company in Australia really get hold of this technology and make it work for us. Now, why is that important? First thing to say is that there's $1 billion every single day being invested into the research and development of artificial intelligence. That's roughly about a quarter of all R&D money that's available to this world going into AI research. That's an unprecedented amount of single-tracked funding going into one particular set of technologies. In the US alone, that's $250 billion every single year. And this is not going to slow down either. It's expected to double. Rough estimates say that by 2030 it'll be double that amount, maybe even triple that amount. So significant amounts of money going into this piece. Now, I get sent a lot of articles and research papers on AI and what people are saying about AI. There's a couple on the screen here for you. These ones come from an IBM paper fairly recently. I'm sure you've seen it, but as you can see, all companies around the world, the research is telling us that people are jumping into this technology at a huge rate. Roughly 2/3, the middle number there, 64%, roughly 2/3 of CEOs are spending in AI because they're fearful of not being part of the game that AI brings. I'm not sure that's the right motivation myself, but I think it doesn't matter how we get there, it's important that we invest. Another interesting report came out from McKinsey recently that said only 1% of organizations consider themselves mature when it comes to AI. Personally, I think that 1% are lying, because I don't think anyone's really mature yet when it comes to AI. We're all moving at pace to get there. Another stat that came out of that same report said that 92% of companies are starting to accelerate their spend in AI. I'm fearful for the 8% that aren't doing that, because they're going to be the ones that are truly get left behind. Myself, what do I think? I think that artificial intelligence, and while AI has been around a long time, this particular current flavor of artificial intelligence, I think is going to be classified as the next general purpose technology. There have been 25 general purpose technologies since the start of mankind, and I think the key thing there is that the characteristics of each of those GPTs, general purpose technologies, we love using an acronym twice in different ways, that they change everything about the world. If you think about the ones that have come before, like the wheel, like the steam engine, like the computer chip, and like the internet, these ones have completely changed the way as humankind have developed and evolved. Without them, we wouldn't have got very far as a race, as a group of as humans on this planet. There's one measure that economists like to look at when they think about general purpose technologies, and that is the labour rate, the annual labour productivity rate. With the steam engine, the global rate jumped by 0.3%. With the computer chip, it jumped double that, 0.6%. And with the internet, it jumped even greater again at 1.5%. These are significant productivity goals and changes that we've seen as an advent of these technologies. AI, I suspect, will go even further again in terms of changing the way that the labour productivity rate changes. And so I think that this is going to be one of the most important things that we all need to pay strong attention to going forward. And I'm sure everyone's in this room because you probably feel the same way as I do. So I want to cover quickly these 4 topics. And I want to start with people, because actually it's going to be people, and the adoption is going to be driven by humans. All of us in the room, all of our families, all of our citizens, and all of our customers. And it's going to be that's going to be the most telling factor, is the change in human behavior around that. Second, I want to quickly touch on transition. How are we looking at the big transitions going on, and how every company needs to take particular care of what's going to change and in what order, and what do you need to do to get ready for that transition. I'll talk a little bit about work, and in particular the work that we've been doing inside Westpac. We have an advanced lab on AI, and we call it the AI Accelerator inside Westpac, and it's been doing some amazing things. A shout out to a number of you in the audience who I think the world of, and you've done incredible things for our customers and our employees. And then lastly of all, why are we doing it? What's the value that it brings to us, to our citizens, but also our company? So let's start with people. So the first thing to know is some more stats. 48% of employees are saying that training is the most important thing that they have to do to get themselves really ready to adopt AI. But yet a recent KPMG survey said that less than 36% of employees and people around Australia feel they don't have sufficient skills. And so this gap that we've got around people desiring it and actually ready for it is a really telling one. 66%, so 2/3 of people are saying that they're using AI regularly, and 55% actually are starting to see benefits from that. Those numbers, which came from an external survey, are correlated roughly with what we're seeing inside Westpac as well. One really interesting one, which I haven't put up on the board there, but it talks about the pressure people are feeling in our society to adopt AI. So a recent survey said that 76%, so 3/4 of the people surveyed of workers, this is inside companies, felt that there's pressure on them to become AI savvy. So as leaders inside these companies, it's upon us to make sure that we close this skill gap down. It's only with taking everyone on this journey that we're going to be ready to adopt AI at the scale we need to. So inside Westpac, we're not going to leave anyone behind. Our most important thing is it's not just about the technology people or the people that sit inside the AI lab, the AI Accelerator. It's about ensuring that everyone gets to use the AI, to touch the AI, to adopt it and become comfortable with it. There are 5 things that we're focused on inside Westpac. First of all, leadership. We need to make sure that the leadership is aligned and connected to the belief systems of AI. In fact, Westpac has a people leaders conference on in this very building on a different floor today. I've just come from there, and Anthony, our CEO, was on stage talking about artificial intelligence, so leading from the front, talking about how important it is that we as a company are serious about, and everyone in the whole company needs to be part of that. Number 2 is innovation mindset. You've got to unlock the learning and the inquisitive nature of your organization, so that becomes an important thing. AI literacy, making sure people are familiar with the technology and the tools and are hands-on with it. And then that they've got access to it, that they can touch it and feel it, use it every day, and that gives them the confidence to move forward. And lastly, the 5th thing that we're focused on to make sure that the people are connected is measuring it. We want to understand how they're feeling, both through surveys and information, how they feel about it, right the way through to understanding how they're using it and are they adopting it well. One example's up on the screen there, the AI Shark Tank. This is something we announced just a little while ago inside Westpac. So the whole company, some 35,000 people now have access to the AI Shark Tank, and this is where they're learning skills, they're getting to understand how to pitch ideas, they're understanding how to develop ideas, and then they're getting the opportunity to go through a series of pitches to eventually they get to take their idea to the head sharks, the executives of the bank, who will then select some winners and will invest in them. But the point of the whole exercise is to connect everyone with this idea. So number 2, transition. So I'm going to start by picking one of the transitions that's going to happen. Now, there are lots of other transitions that are going to possibly happen. Things like, the mobile phone. What's going to happen to mobile phone in the next 5 years? What's going to happen with the way that we work and how we work and things like that. There are lots of transitions that are going to happen, but I want to pick one and just sort of play that forward and sort of give you a sense of how we're starting to think about picking these transitions out. So here's some facts and figures. I'm going to pick the internet to start with. So last year, 50% of traffic on the internet wasn't human-based traffic, and all that traffic, some 37% were actually done by bad bots, the evil bots that are out there creating evil content. And so what does this create? This creates that whole AI slop that we hear about quite often. And if content on the internet now has switched from us as humans developing it to machines developing it, we've got to start asking ourselves the value of that content. Where does that go? And what does that look like over the years ahead? 16 to 1. Let me explain that one. So Google 10 years ago used to enable you, when you created content, it would crawl over your pages, it'd understand your content, and every time your name came up in a search on one of their pages, they sent that traffic to you. And it was a 2 to 1 ratio. So every time it came up in 2 searches, you got that content, that link to you. About 6 months ago, that ratio was at 6 to 1. So 6 times it appeared on the Google screen, 1 time it came to you. So 6 months, 6 to 1. Only now, or currently, only a week or so ago, that ratio had already crashed to 16 to 1. Now, that's just Google. When you think of the other engines, the other GPT engines, they're up around the 250 to 1 ratio and higher. So if it's staying in those ecosystems and the links aren't coming out to your content and websites, what's the point of creating your content? It changes the whole dynamic of content generation. And then the final stat up there around social media is an interesting one. It talks to the point that, a good 2/3 of the population in the world are on social media, but we're all looking for a kinder, more fairer social media play. It's a hard place to be social media. And do you think the current social media platforms that are play out on the internet are going to be the same in the next few years when we have chatbots out there that are able to talk to us and relate to us and give us things that we want and feed us things back? We're already seeing that across a number of different areas. And so you've got to ask yourself, what parts of the internet are going to be here in the next 3 years, 5 years? What's going to change in that front? How will that look differently? I had a panel the other day inside Westpac. They were exceptional leaders, 4 of them from around the world, and I asked them the question, what will the internet look like by 2030? And I gave them 3 options, from pretty much the same to probably 50-50 change to completely different. And they all were in the spectrum. So if the experts don't really have an opinion on that, it's all up to us as leaders and people in companies to work out what does it mean to things like the internet. Because if it does mean a change, if you do decide that things are going to change, you're going to have to start thinking about what transitions you're going to have to make inside your companies. So on the left is sort of how it would look today. On the right, maybe 3 years away from now, is what you need to have in place. It changes quite dynamically the whole environment. It creates a whole new architecture that you're going to have to consider from the ground up. So that if we're going to say that the mobile and the browser interface fades, how does the chat interface appear and what does it look like going forward? But it doesn't stop there. We've got familiar for the last decade or two of all the protocols and how the technology works in the web environment. But all of a sudden, thanks to developments in the industry, we have new protocols appearing and a new way to connect up things. It begs the question, is the end product now going to be a human that's going to be at the end of this, or is it going to be an agent at the end of this talking to this now going forward? Because we're developed for humans here, but on the other side it may be an agent that's going to be talking to us that represents that customer. So it changes a whole bunch of technology that you're going to have to think about. We're already working on both these protocols inside Westpac. We have teams actually thinking about how do we take the Anthropic's MCP, the Model Context Protocol, and making that work inside our company. And how do we now start to think about the capabilities that we expose through typical APIs inside our company, and how do we now expose them through MCP as a protocol internally? And then of course there's the more recent A2A, and I'd say while MCP is pretty much become an industry norm now, A2A is one of a field of different protocols out there that allow agents to talk to each other, and we haven't quite settled on that. But we're not done there yet either. We're going to see much more change in this particular space at a rapid pace. And so inside our company, we're working hard to understand what it looks like and start to ensure that we're ahead of the game. And so getting on top of that transition. And so I talked about agents, and you'll hear agents used 1 billion times in this conference and just about every conference you go to, right? It's the latest trending word. I'm sure everyone's very familiar with it. And so underpinning that right-hand side before us is going to be a series of agents and other AI technologies underpinning that. And so we've got to think about the evolution of those agents. We're sort of plotting it against 3 axes. The left-hand axis on this graph talks about the agency in terms of how broad it goes inside your company, from an agent that helps me right the way to a complete workforce of agents out there operating. The axis along the bottom talks about the risk and the scale elements to do with making sure that the frameworks are in place to do it safely and soundly, because you want to go from completely human observed AI to autonomous AI eventually. And so how do you build out the risk along that pathway there? And then ultimately the one that goes up the middle there, it's the intelligence. It's how intelligent, how smart these AI agents become. And so we need to make sure that we're thinking about these axes all the time and developing them as they come along with all the whole stack that we just talked about before. And of course the question is, when is it going to happen? There's a huge debate, and I'm sure if we asked when does everyone think artificial general intelligence is going to appear, everyone would have a different opinion, from a year away to never. And I think there's somewhere in that range of maybe 5+ years, and of course that depends a lot on what you define AG to be. Artificial general intelligence doesn't have a common definition in my world, at this stage when I look out and see things. But I think we need to be really clear on where this could appear and what, if it's a reality in 5 years from now, how do we get ready for this? So this whole section on transition is getting everyone to think about what it could look like over the next few years. It's not just about what my chatbot's doing, it's about the whole world changing and getting ourselves ready for that change. So I want to talk about work, and this is all about how do you take AI into your company, a company like Westpac, as we'll talk about now, and how do you scale that safely? Every time a consultant comes and talks to me, they'll tell me the world is frozen in the experimentations phase. There's lots of experiments going on, but few people have really grasped the idea of how to scale it. I'm happy to say that I think at Westpac we've really got our handle on that, and we're really leading the field in terms of understanding how to take AI and scale it. And it is tricky. There are some real challenges in doing that, and I think we've broken the back of that piece. So the first thing I want to say is that over the last 3+ years, even before OpenAI announced to the world it was doing, we were already working with large language models inside Westpac with a couple of our partners. But over the last 3 years, we've found over 1,000 different use cases we've looked at across our organization, and we can classify them nice and cleanly into a combination or a complete pattern here, one of these 4 patterns. And these 4 patterns have not let us down yet. So every use case that comes to us, we can say you're an information retrieval pattern, or your process completion pattern, which may be more to do with the agentic AI piece and agents, or a combination of patterns that come together. A combination of these come together to deliver a use case. But these are the ones that help us out get to where we need to. Now, the thing with having patterns, and any of you that are more architecturally bent in the room will understand that patterns allow you to scale faster. If I can build a pattern, I can then put the technology behind it, I can build the guardrails behind it, I can ensure that it's ready to go when the next use case comes along. And that's been one of the challenges a lot of companies have had, is they've jumped straight to the technology without actually thinking about how do you patternize the technology that's in front of you. Now, of course, those patterns are interesting, and there's a lot of artificial intelligence behind it. Up on the screen here are just 5 of those, and they're not in any particular order or ranked order. In fact, predictive AI, which a lot of you will be familiar with machine learning, I heard someone use the term legacy AI the other day. I'm not sure I'm very comfortable with that. I think the predictive AI is still incredibly powerful, the machine learning routines and things like that. And to me, these are just tools of the trade. These are just technologies that we need to embrace. And while predictive AI seems to have been the one that people are saying is legacy now, it's still very important. Generative AI, I suspect we're in the 6 months away from calling that legacy number 2, as everyone talks about agents and agentic AI. Not a lot of people are talking about research AI and reasoning AI, but they're on the forefront now, and there's certainly things that we're working on right today because they all come together to create these capabilities. Two use cases I want to touch on briefly. The top one there around a generative AI solution. In our mortgage space, we get everyone, customers and brokers sending us documents to apply for a mortgage, an application. And with every application comes a lot of information about those people. It's all unstructured data. It's all written down in a way that's sometimes very hard. It's not very machine readable until now, until generative AI lets us handle it. We also have a lot of policies, the lending code of practice, we have ethical lending practices, we have all sorts of standards that we want to adhere to in terms of when we lend to people. That's all written down in Word as well, in natural language. So our ability to bring the customer's unstructured text and information and our own unstructured content together to allow us to then process and triage an application for a loan. Now, instead of a human doing it in a couple hours, we're able to do it in milliseconds to do that triage and then hand it to a human to look over and say, does that look right? Is that right? That's what we're able to achieve with this capability. And that's we built that all on AWS Bedrock. So that was a really powerful outcome, and it's saving our bankers and our mortgage assessors a lot of time. The second one here is in our data space. We've got a big data program on right now. We're building data products. We're probably well advanced on that piece, and we want to go faster at that. Everyone wants to go faster at getting to the data. And so one of the things we wanted to do was build some agents that would actually help do that. And so we went from a squad of four humans building out these data products to now a squad of 2 humans and 4 agents. And you can see on the screen how materially different that is. That's a huge step forward. And we have these agents now which are assessing the structure of the data and handing across that structure to another agent that's actually coding in Python, handing that to another agent that's actually testing that, and then deploying that into production. And we're able to do what, as it shows you on the screen, what those 4 people would typically take 6 weeks to do. We're now doing it in 4 days with some agents. And if we start scaling that across a number of our solution sets, the power is phenomenal. So I want to close on value and talk about that. Number 4. The way we think of value, we sort of break it into sort of three waves. First one is productivity. It's the one that most of you will hear about. It's the one that your CEOs or your CFOs will be most interested in. It's the one that unlocks the money. And clearly that's the one that most of us are working on right now as companies around the world, and certainly we are. We're seeing anything from 5 to 40% productivity gains, 5 to 40% at an individual level. We're seeing return of investment averaging the range averages between 2 and 6x return on investment. Some much higher than that, like that one I just showed you around the agents is much higher return on investment. And so productivity is where we're getting a lot of huge benefit from. But the next wave that we're working on right now is this experience layer. We're all very comfortable using Copilot and chatting and chat GPTs and all the others out there. We're getting more and more comfortable conversing in a human language with technology. Now, when I first started my career, my very first job, we still had some punch cards in our technology shop. And so when I think about that, that was the last time we actually ever had an interface that's different from a keyboard and a screen. So the very beginning of my career, some 30 odd years ago now. But I think we're at the difference now. We're about to change again, and maybe we'll all witness the next evolution and change to the way that we experience interacting with computers. My son is very comfortable having an argument with Siri every night to switch off a light and something like that as he goes to bed and things like that. So we as the next generation coming through are going to need to think about how we're going to create this new experience for our customers, for our citizens, and for our staff. And then the last one is this idea of expertise. As we bring all these forms of AI together, we're at the point where we can start really offering our customers and our citizens of the country true expertise. And I think this will be the thing that differentiates ourselves. If you go back to my comment around general purpose technologies just didn't connect people through faster means or give new capabilities to people's hands. It actually changed whole commerce systems. If you think about something like the internet, the advent of AWS came out of the internet, and you think about the Uber that came out of the internet. These are new businesses were invented out of the internet. We've got to think about the same way. AI is going to create whole new capabilities that we're going to create whole new business models, and that's where the expertise of AI will be the thing that we can really truly unleash on things. And so that's where we believe was the next big piece coming forward. If I look 3 years ahead or so, and we've actually got this working in the lab today inside Westpac, is this idea of my digital twin. If you think about it for a second, as we bring all these AI building blocks together, it's got to manifest into something that's a bit more relatable to people. As technologists probably in this room, we can all probably see what it means, but we need to explain this to our mums and dads and our kids and our grandparents and things like that. And to me, this is a little bit how I start to think about what the future might look like. Very soon, we'll have this ability to build a whole new architecture completely centered around an individual, 100% wrapped around an individual. And so as we think about this My Digital Twin, it manifests itself in this idea that a customer can have a digital twin sitting inside, their digital twin sitting inside Westpac, acting on their behalf. It would be an intermediary. It would act on their behalf proactively and engage with us and get things done on their behalf. And vice versa, we could interact with it and it would actually be able to coalesce information back to the human in this model. Now, it's not going to be for everyone, but it's certainly going to be where this technology allows us to take us going forward. And so these advances are going to be incredibly powerful to the future of what we bring our citizens and our customers going into the next generation. So as we think about Westpac, which is a relationship bank, it is the true relationship bank of the country, how we're now thinking about how AI helps those relationships. How does it build on those? How does it support our bankers today with giving them insights for their customers? How does it take time out of their day to remove toil? And how does it free people up to move along quickly? Right the way through to a My Digital Twin, which will really help our customers engage soundly and better with our going forward. So people, we can't leave anyone behind. We can't leave anyone behind. That's how we feel about it. Everyone's got to come on the journey. We've got to know where we're going. These big transitions are coming and they're going to take a lot of preparing. You've got to know how to scale work inside your AI work inside your company. There's a whole bunch of techniques you need to get there. And then you've got to know what the real value of it is. It's not just about productivity. It's about the whole general purpose technologies are going to unlock a whole host of different things. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time today. Enjoy the rest of the conference.